My dear brothers and sisters, have you ever found yourself sitting alone in the quiet of the night with a question echoing in the deepest chambers of your heart? A question you're almost afraid to whisper. Does Allah Almighty still see me? Perhaps you have turned your face towards the heavens, your cheeks damp with tears that no one else has seen, and you have spoken to Him. You have poured out your soul. Yet you feel as though your words disappear into an endless void. You have tried so hard to do what is right. You have been patient. You have held on to your faith with everything you have. You have remained steadfast when it would have been so much easier to crumble. But the ache in your heart does not seem to fade. The sting of rejection from someone you loved still feels so fresh. The path ahead remains shrouded in mist, uncertain and frightening. And in that heavy silence, your heart begins to form heavier questions. Why is this happening to me? Why must I endure this now? Why does this journey feel so incredibly lonely, so profoundly unfair? This is a feeling that so many of us carry, a weight that settles upon our spirits. It does not come from a place of weak faith, not at all. It comes from a place of exhaustion. It is the cry of a heart that has been brave for so long and is now just weary. Life can sometimes feel like a long corridor of locked doors, a series of beautiful dreams that seem to dissolve into mist the moment you reach for them, a collection of prayers that you feel have gone unanswered. But my dear friend, I want you to pause for a moment. I want you to breathe. And I want you to consider something that may change everything. What if the silence you are experiencing is not a sign of absence? What if that silence is in fact a form of divine protection? What if the things that did not work out, the people who turned and walked away from your life, the moments that shattered your carefully laid plans into a million pieces were not punishments, but were all threads in a grand tapestry of mercy being woven specifically for you? You see, we often imagine that divine protection will feel like a visible miracle, a sudden parting of the seas before us. We expect it to be loud and grand and obvious, but more often than not, it does not feel like that. Sometimes, the most profound protection from Allah Almighty feels like heartbreak. Sometimes the door that slammed shut in your face was the very thing that saved you from walking into a devastating storm you had no idea was brewing just beyond the threshold. Sometimes the person who left your life, leaving behind an empty space that aches, was making room for your own healing to finally begin. Sometimes the unexpected delay in your journey was the one thing that prevented you from reaching a destination where you would have broken in a way that you could never recover from. This is not just a comforting thought.
Is a spiritual truth, a reality deeply embedded within our faith. It is a reminder that our vision is limited, but His is infinite. You are not being overlooked. You are being carefully, lovingly, and perfectly guarded. So, if you have been moving through your days feeling unseen, feeling forgotten, or feeling hopelessly lost, please stay with me. Let us take this journey together. Let us learn to look at our pain not as a final verdict, but as a process. Let us gently uncover the hidden mercy that so often arrives in the disguise of an unanswered prayer. Because it is entirely possible, my dear friend, that the very thing you thought was meant to break you was actually sent to protect you. Have you ever looked at your life, at the path you are on, and felt a deep sense of confusion? You had a plan. You had a destination in mind. You made your intention. You put your trust in Allah Almighty, and you began to walk, only to find yourself facing a wall where you expected an open gate. A relationship you nurtured with sincerity and love suddenly ended, leaving you bewildered. A career you poured your heart and soul into vanished, leaving you feeling without purpose. A dream you held on to through years of difficulty crumbled just when you thought you were about to reach it. In these moments, it is so easy for the heart to fall into despair. It is easy to think that something has gone terribly wrong, that you have somehow failed, or worse, that you are being punished for some past mistake you may not even be aware of. The whispers of self-doubt grow louder, telling you that perhaps you are not worthy of goodness, that perhaps you are not deserving of ease. But I want to ask you, with the utmost gentleness, to consider an alternative. A perspective that requires a shift not in your circumstances, but in your heart. What if these setbacks, these painful detours, were not failures at all? What if they were signs? What if they were loving messages from the one who cares for you most, guiding you away from a harm that was hidden from your eyes? Could it be that the things that left your life were never truly meant to be part of your story's beautiful ending? Could it be that the ache you feel right now is the growing pain of your soul being stretched to accommodate a bigger blessing that is on its way? You see, the protection of Allah Almighty does not always arrive with loud drums and fanfare. It does not always manifest as immediate comfort or instant clarity. Sometimes His protection is wrapped in the quiet stillness of a lonely night. It is veiled in the struggle of having to start all over again. It is hidden in the separation from something or someone you desperately wanted to keep. His wisdom is never ever absent. It is present in every single moment, even when His grand plan feels completely hidden from our limited view.
This understanding is the key to unlocking a treasure of inner peace. It is the beginning of learning to see with the eye of your heart, not just the eye of your head. When you start to see life's disappointments as divine redirections, the bitterness begins to dissolve. The anger softens into acceptance. The confusion gives way to a quiet, hopeful curiosity about what Allah Almighty has in store for you instead. Not every delay is a denial. Let that sink into your heart for a moment. Just because the blessing has not arrived on your timeline does not mean it is not coming. Not every loss is a punishment. Sometimes, in order to receive something better, something has to be removed. And not all silence is abandonment. Sometimes, Allah Almighty is silent so that you can learn to listen to the voice of your own heart speaking to Him. There is profound wisdom in the waiting. There is immense growth in the quiet moments. There is unimaginable mercy in being redirected. So as we move forward, let us hold this truth close. Let us begin to look for the signs, not of punishment, but of protection. They may be small, and they may be subtle, but they are there, waiting to be noticed by a heart that is willing to see. To truly understand the depth and beauty of how Allah Almighty protects us, even through immense difficulty, we only need to turn to the stories He has preserved for us. Let us gently step into the life of a noble prophet, a man whose story is a powerful testament to pain, betrayal, patience, and ultimately unparalleled divine protection. Let us reflect on the journey of Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him. He was wronged by the very people who should have loved him the most, yet he never, for a single moment, lost his connection to his Creator. I want you to imagine this for a moment. Picture a young boy, pure of heart and full of beautiful dreams, being led away by his own brothers, not by strangers, not by enemies in the battlefield, but by his own flesh and blood. They looked at him, and instead of love, they felt a burning envy. They could not stand to see the light in him. And so, they conspired. They threw him into the darkness of a deep, empty well, thinking that this cruel action would be the end of his story. But what their jealousy blinded them from seeing was that this moment of utter darkness was not an end. It was, in fact, the very beginning of one of the most magnificent stories of trust and triumph ever told.
From the outside, it was a horrifying tragedy, a complete and utter nightmare. But from the perspective of Allah Almighty, the All-Wise, it was the first critical step in a plan that would elevate Joseph to a station they could never have imagined. He was found, but his ordeal was far from over. He was sold as a slave, taken to a foreign land, far from everything he knew and loved, a place where nobody knew his name, nobody knew his noble lineage, and nobody cared for the silent pain in his young heart. He could have so easily fallen into despair. He could have become bitter, angry, and hopeless. But he did not. Even in this land of strangers, even while stripped of his freedom, Joseph carried himself with an unshakable dignity. He remained firm in his faith, trusting that Allah Almighty still saw him, still knew his suffering, and was still with him.
And then his test became even more severe. After years of servitude, he was faced with a powerful temptation. He chose the path of righteousness. He refused to betray his values and his Lord. And for this noble choice, he was rewarded with a false accusation. He was thrown into prison. Think about that for a moment. He did the right thing, the honorable thing, and yet he ended up behind bars, his name tarnished, his freedom taken away once more. How many times have we felt this in our own small ways? We try our best. We choose the honest path. We say no to what is wrong, and yet things still seem to go against us. But the story of Joseph teaches us a vital, life-altering lesson. Sometimes Allah Almighty places you in a situation you never asked for, in a place you would never choose to be, in order to protect you from a devastating outcome you cannot see. That cold, dark prison was not a punishment. It was his fortress. It was his protection. Because while Joseph sat behind those stone walls, forgotten by the world, Allah Almighty was meticulously setting the stage for his magnificent rise. A rise that would not only restore his honor, but would place him in a position of immense power, where he would become a source of mercy and justice for an entire nation. His story reminds us that even in the deepest well, even in the darkest prison, we are not forgotten. The plan is always unfolding. Now let us bring that powerful story closer to home, into the reality of our own lives, because you may not be sitting in a physical prison like Prophet Joseph was, but perhaps, emotionally, that is exactly where you are. Perhaps you feel trapped in a situation that feels utterly hopeless, a job that drains your spirit every single day, a family dynamic that is filled with conflict and misunderstanding, a season of your life that feels like an endless series of closed doors and disappointments. You try with all your might to hold on to your faith, to keep your trust strong, but there is a weary part of you that keeps wondering, where is the ease that was promised? Where is the healing I have been praying for? When, oh when, will things finally get better? It is in these very moments that the story of Joseph becomes not just a historical account, but a deeply personal source of comfort and strength. He did not receive immediate answers. He was not granted a quick and easy escape from his trials. He waited, he endured, and through it all he stayed profoundly connected to Allah Almighty, even when he had every worldly reason to feel abandoned and to give up. And my dear friend, you can do the same. Your pain might not stem from the betrayal of your own brothers, but perhaps someone you trusted with your entire heart walked away from you. Perhaps they left without a word, without an explanation, or worse, they broke your heart with words that were untrue. You might find yourself replaying those final conversations over and over in your mind, trying to pinpoint what you did wrong, wondering why Allah Almighty did not intervene and stop it from happening. But perhaps He did stop something. Perhaps He stopped you from investing more years of your life into a connection that would have ultimately caused you even more pain. Maybe that heartbreak was the necessary first step towards your true healing. Maybe that loss was created